Blast at Afghan capital, Toronto van attack, North Korea and South Korea talk, and a peek into the Australian budget. It's the 29th of the 4th, 2018. This is what's going on. Our first topic of discussion is a suicide bomber has blown himself up outside a voter registration centre in the Afghan capital of Kabul on Sunday, killing at least 57 and wounding more than 119. This is the most serious attack yet on preparations for the elections scheduled in October. Islamic State has claimed responsibility, as they always do, for such an attack. Afghani government has also been under international pressure to ensure long-delayed parliamentary polls take place this year. A witness said that the bomber approached the centre on foot, where officials were issuing identity cards and for the registration process for about 10 million voters across Afghanistan. President Ghani issued a statement condemning the attack and said it cannot divert us from our aims to weaken this nation's democratic process. Also, it's the deadliest blast in Kabul since 100 people were killed in January by a bomb concealed inside an ambulance, which is terrifying. And it comes from warnings from militants that they are going to keep on trying to disrupt the elections. The senior United Nations official in Afghanistan issued a statement condemning the attack. Compounding the callous disregard for lives of citizens, the killing appears to be part of a wholly unacceptable effort by extremists to deter Afghan citizens from carrying out their constitutional right to take part in the elections, he said. After weeks of relative calm, the blast took place in Dashi Bachi, an area of western Kabul inhabited by many members of mainly Shiite Hazari minority, which has been repeatedly hit by attacks claimed by Islamic State. We'll put a video now and let's go to the ground.
Tonight, a sadly all too familiar scene of carnage in the Afghan capital. The blood-soaked aftermath of a suicide bombing outside of an election center in Kabul. The intense blast shattering windows, crushing cars. The attackers target hundreds of people waiting to register for upcoming elections. Dozens are dead, many of them women, according to health officials, and children too. More than 100 injured. Desperate scenes at local hospitals inundated with victims as families search for loved ones. ISIS in Afghanistan tonight claiming responsibility, saying it targeted Shiite apostates. But Afghanistan's fight for democracy also under assault.
The issue with this is that there were women and children and people have just come across to try and practice their right for democracy and receive their identity cards. There's more than 7,000 voter registration centres that have been set up across Afghanistan to handle the 10 million registrations. There's a lot going on here, and the attacks are just coming left, right and centre for them. So we've got a witness statement stating that they should be keeping the country safe. If they cannot, someone else should be in their place. From Sajeda, who was wounded from the blast along with 3 other members of his family as they line up for their cards. On Sunday, a roadside bomb near a registration centre in the north city of Pula Kolamari killed 6 members of the family and wounded 3, although there was no indication that the incident was directly linked to the Kabul attack. I find that hard to believe. Last week, 2 police officers in the eastern city of Jalalabad were killed outside a voter registration centre, while the voter centre was in the central province of Gore was burnt down last week. They're hitting it hard and fast all across the nation. These people, they need to stick tight, help each other out. The democratic process is far better for them than, well, obviously the Islamic State way of running. Our Parliament is still sitting 3 years after its term officially expired. This is why there might be an issue with this, that there could possibly be foul play within the government to prolong these elections. There was an additional scare on Sunday when NATO military convoy in Kabul accidentally hit and injured a child and triggered a protest that police dispersed by firing into the air. That could possibly just be an accident. There's a little bit of an issue going on with civilians and the democratic process with Islamic State. It's a little bit rough. It's a little bit shifty. I hope that they can pull through and get these elections done in a manner which is human. So the next news article we have, sorry about the morbid news, is the Toronto van attack. Canadian police are still seeking a motive for Tuesday's van attack in a bustling downtown Toronto, which left 10 pedestrians dead. The driver of the van who was arrested was to appear at court on Tuesday. Police said the incident during the busy lunch hour on Monday appeared to be deliberate, but they had not identified a terror link. This took place in broad daylight, around 16 kilometres from a conference centre hosting the meeting of the G7 ministers, but officials said there was no evidence of a link to the event. The actions definitely look deliberate, Toronto Police Chief Mark Saunders told journalists. Of course it looks deliberate. He went on the sidewalk and ran over people. That's deliberate. It wasn't an accident. It's a horrible day in Toronto. Police arrested the suspect at the scene, who police identified later as 25-year-old Alex Mezzanine from northern Toronto suburb. The suspect and a police officer faced off with their guns drawn. The suspect eventually surrendered his weapon and was taken into custody. I'll put the clip in. This man wanted to die. He states in the video, shoot me in the head. Obviously, it was premeditated. He got the van, which was a hire van, ran over pedestrians with it, and then wanted to die. It's, I don't know, see it for yourselves.
Come on, get down! Come on. No, get down! Get down! I'm cutting my pocket. I don't care, get down! I'm cutting my pocket. Get down! Get down and get shot! Shoot me in the head. You guys, get down. What street is this? Booger? Okay, let's go help out the other guy.
So Canada is rarely a scene of a terrorist attack, terror attack. So we'll go through what's actually happened to him. The suspect, Alec, was also charged with 10 counts of murder and 13 counts of attempted murder. The issue I have with this is the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, says no reason to suspect any national security connection. There's obviously an issue going on, and I wouldn't just throw it under the rug straight like that. But one possible clue to his motive emerged, as Facebook confirmed, that he'd been posting before the incident. He has an issue with women. Obviously, he's a misogynist of some sort, that he feels that he's been neglected and rejected by women so far that he has to go and attack people. No excuse, possibly a mental health issue. It's not the van killing people, it's a madman killing people. To try and just throw it on the rug that there's nothing involved in this and people shouldn't be on alert for it. I'd say people should be on alert that this has happened, and we need to go down the proper avenues to make sure this doesn't happen again, or at least the Canadian people need to. Alright guys, time for a good story. This is about North Korea and South Korea. North Korea's Kim Jong-un met with South Korea's Moon Jae-in in the demilitarized zone in between the countries. Kim Jong-un has become the first North Korean leader to cross into the South since the signing of the North Korean War Armistice in 1953, attending an historic summit with his southern counterpart Moon Jae-in. Some key points here. Mr. Moon also crossed briefly to the north, which that is a great step for both of them. Mr. Kim wrote, "A new history starts now," in the Peace House guest book. The leaders also planted a memorial tree at the Truce Village. North Korea's President Mr. Moon personally greeted Mr. Kim with a handshake in the demilitarized zone between the countries. The leaders posed for a photo together before crossing hand in hand, kicking off the first leadership summit between the divided countries in more than a decade. Mr. Kim also invited Mr. Moon to step briefly across the border into North Korea. The meeting was aimed to end the decades-long conflict and easing tensions in the nuclear program which the North has. This comes weeks before Mr. Kim's due to talk to Trump. Mr. Kim is accompanied by 9 officials, including his sister Kim Yong-jong, who led North Korea's delegations in the Winter Olympic Games in South Korea earlier this year. I think the Games might have helped ease a little bit, possibly. So the South's delegation included Mr. Moon's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Defense, and Unification. The two leaders were handed flowers by a South Korean boy and girl from a village in the demilitarized zone. Walking a red carpet rolled out for the two heads of state, the pair were met by South Korean honor guards in historical costumes and playing traditional music. A new history starts now, an age of peace from what the starting point of history, Mr. Kim wrote During the private meeting, Mr. Kim told Mr. Moon he came to the summit to end the history of conflict and joked that he was sorry for keeping Mr. Moon up with his late-night missile tests. A South Korean official said, "This is nice. I really hope that they work together and they can put aside their differences and come together as a country, not just North and South." So now we're going to talk about the Australian budget, which is coming out in 2 weeks. There's been little bits of information being thrown out there by Scott Morrison. This is going to be a quick one because I'm not going to speculate until the actual budget comes out, which we'll go through in that in depth. It's going to be fun. So Scott Morrison has outlined that they're going to be removing the revenue intended for the NDIS, but says the government can still fund the program. The Turnbull government will be using looming May budget to dump plans to increase the Medicare level to fund the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS, in a shift intended to reframe the tax debt before the next election. So basically what they're going to do here, they're taking money out from what they were going to put into the NDIS. They're going to save it and then try and take money from elsewhere. But we can't go any further into this to see until we find out exactly where money's going, where's it coming from, and then we can sort of sit down and go, is this fair, is this real, is this good for the economy, is this good for its people? So I told you it's going to be a short one, and that's it on the budget until the actual budget comes out. Alright guys, welcome to the Fast 5, new segment where I'm just going to put 5 points out there and just give a very brief overlay of what's going on. So first one, Bitcoin. In 2017, Bitcoin's value soared from $1,000 to $20,000 before dropping around $13,000 at the end of the year. Since then, the value goes up and down, up and down. There's a reason for that. Bitcoin is a volatile commodity. It will rise and it will plummet. It will up and down, up and down. The issue with this is that there's new coins coming in, and countries may not take it on board. This is what makes it so volatile. If you want to invest money in stuff, I'd say probably in metals or in Dow Jones or just something which has a little bit more stability. But then again, you can make a little bit of money if you ride the peaks and the troughs. Alright, number 2. 12-year-old boy uses family credit card to fly to Bali after an argument with his mother. Well, this boy's flown to Perth and then flown to Bali. How is that possible? I have no idea. Supposedly he's done his research and he's figured out what airplanes will let him on with just a student card. This is completely crazy. The kid is home safe. His mum's probably going to ground him for the next 10 years to pay back the flights because flying to Perth and then to Bali is not a cheap adventure. The one question I have is how can a 12-year-old go through an airport, go through security checks, get on a plane, be seen by air hostesses, and not been noted that he's on his own, or even asked the question. I know he might have told him porcupines about it, but authorities should have been involved, or some sort of security check should have been noted that he doesn't have a guardian with him. Alright, number 3. Kanye West has called President Trump his brother. He ain't heavy. He's his brother. In a barrage of tweets, more than 18 million followers for the 40-year-old wrote, "Here's my brother. I love everyone. I don't agree with everything he does. But that's what makes us individuals, and we have the right to independent thought." Yes, we do. The funny thing is, Mr. Trump has retweeted back, writing, "Thank you, Kanye. Very cool." Kanye has always been a nut. It's a little bit of fun. Okay, number 4, the Bill Cosby trial. A jury found Bill Cosby guilty of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault on Thursday for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constant at her home in a Philadelphia suburb in 2004. The 80-year-old comedian faces up to 10 years in prison with each account, but Cosby is likely to serve them concurrently, which means all at the same time. The sentencing hearing with Judge Stephen O'Neill has not yet been scheduled, and Cosby remains out on bail. I believe he should feel the full force of the law for his actions. It doesn't matter who you are still a human. To do that to another human, you deserve the punishment that is given. Number 5, Aflie Evans. Little Aflie Evans has been at the centre of a life support battle between his parents, health officials, and the British justice system for several months. The little fella's life support was switched off after his family had lost the most recent of a lot of legal appeals to try and keep him alive, keep him on life support. Alfie's been living in a coma for well over a year. He caught a chest infection that caused seizures and was placed on life support in Liverpool on December 2016. His life support was turned off on April 23, 2018 after a last ditch by his parents was rejected. Now they're trying to send him to Italy for new tests and new means of trying to fix his illness. He was barred from going to Italy for treatment after another failed legal challenge. The appeal court in London rejected his family plea to have Alfie airlifted from the Liverpool clinic. Following one appeal, Lord Justice Davis ruled that Alfie's life support must be turned off and told lawyers and doctors that have both agreed that there was no hope. Alfie passed away yesterday, the 28th of the 4th, 2018. Alright guys, that's it for the news highlights for the week ending 29th of the 4th. If you liked the content and the highlights, please leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, please be nice. And if you want more content, please go to the page itself. If you want to be notified for next week's, please subscribe. Thank you. This is what's going on.